Okay, how are you? So this will be a video on functions, and then the next video will be a function on graphing functions. So just to go through the basic of functions. So what a function is we take a number as an input and then we get a number as an output. So here it will be f of x, and then it's equal to something that we do with the input. So for example, it might be x squared plus 2 times x. So functions are all about inputs and outputs. So in this case, the input of this function, I'll just say I for input. The input of this function is going to be x, okay? And I'll do concrete examples in a minute, but just to show you. Okay, so we input in x, and our output then, if I do it in red, and then our output, O, is f of x. So what we do to x. So this is our output, and this is our input. So we input in a number, in this case it's x, and then we get our f of x. But this thing is also the same thing as x squared plus 2x in this case, because this will give us the output also. So x squared plus 2x. Okay, so input and output. And even looking at just this f of x here, it's important to know that this box here, so the total box is the output, but the box I circle in green then is going to be the input. So we have an input in x to get an output of f of x. That can be quite confusing, so just making that clear. Okay, so we'll scroll down, and I'll clear the screen for now. So, okay. So now let's do a concrete example. So let's say we have f of x. So this is our function, and we say this is the general function because x can be any number, so we call it just general. So it's for any number. I will say it's 3x plus 6. So if I ask you what is f of 2, could you figure that out? So pause the video, see if you can get it, and then I'll go through it. So in this case, the input into our function is 2. So we input in 2, and we're going to get back out f of 2, which in this case is 3 times 2 plus 6. So that's 6 plus 6, which is 12. Okay, so then we can say, I'll do it in red. The function, the output of the function, with an input of 2, gives us 12. So the input in this case is 2, sorry, it's going to be a 12. And the output is f of 2. Sorry, I'm just using my mouse, so it can be quite awkward to draw. F of 2, or it can be 12. So the input is 2 and the output is 12, or the output is f of 2. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Do another example. Let's say, or I'll pause the video actually. Okay, so here we have a function f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 3. So now I'm asking you to find f of minus 1 and f of 0. So in both of these questions, are we trying to find an output or an input, do you think? So in both of these, so you can pause the video, think about it. So in both of these examples, we're trying to find the output of the function, okay? And what is our input for both of these questions? Well, in this one, we're inputting in minus 1 into our function, and we're going to run it through, we're going to square it, we're going to multiply it by 2, we're going to add 3. and this one, our input is 0. So we're going to go 0 squared, 2 times 0, etc. So if you want to pause the video and try and find out what is f of minus 1 and what's f of 0, and I'll do it now. Okay, so for the first one, for f of minus 1, that's minus 1 squared plus 2 times minus 1 plus 3. So then when we do that out, minus 1 squared is 1, 2 times minus 1 is minus 2, and then plus 3, so 1 minus 2 is minus 1, minus 1 plus 3 is 2. Okay, so that's the answer for the first one there. And then for the second one, if we input in 0, that's going to be 0 squared, which is 0, plus 2 times 0, which is 0, plus 3, so that equals to 3 then. Okay, so that's the answer for those two. So in this case, we have the input and we're trying to find the output. Okay, so now I'll go through some other examples for functions. Okay, so now in this question, we have the general function. So for any input here, x, we have f of x is equal to x squared plus 5x plus 6. So now the question says f of x is equal to 0. Find x. Okay, so in this example, are we trying to find an output or an input? Pause the video and think. So in this case, we actually know what the output is. So what is the output of this function? We know the output is going to be 0. Okay. So if f of x, maybe I should say if f of x is equal to 0, find x. So we know the output this time, so it's different. We know the output, but we don't know the input. Okay? So if f of x is equal to 0, find x. Okay? So how do we solve this? I'll give you, so you can pause the video to see if you can do this. You might have done it, remember how to do it before. But if not, I'll go through it now. Okay, so one wrong way of doing it is to do it the same as we were always doing. So to go, okay, well, f of 0 is equal to 0 squared plus 5 times 0 plus 6, so that equals to 6. That is wrong, because we're not trying to find what the output is, we're trying to find what the input is. So here, we made the input to be 0. Okay, so we found when the input is 0, the output is 6. But you can see here, we want the output to be 0, not 6. So this is wrong, okay? So we're trying to find a number in here, in the input, that when we square it, multiply by 5 and add 6, we end up getting out 0. So see if you can solve that, and then I'll go through the answer now. Okay, so because we know that the output has to be 0 for a certain input, we're trying to find for what input, when we square it, multiply it by 5 and add 6, we get out 0. So this is the equation that we had to have made, okay? So this was the key point to try and find that we're actually using this equation here. Now, can you solve it from here? Can you remember what to do? Okay, so from here, you can use the minus b formula. So you could go minus, well, you can pause and try and do it, but I'm going to do it now. Minus 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 6, all over 2 times 1. Okay, and the answer to that then is x is equal to minus 2, or x is equal to minus 3. And that is your answer there, okay? So if we input in minus 2 into this function, so f of minus 2, for example, for an input of minus 2, we get an output of 0. So that's what they were looking for. So these are the two answers here.